up your sleeves. Damn the torpedoes. And don't forget to wash your It's time for our second most ambitious episode of the Sleepless Knights podcast ever. Get on board your skateboard, board, Titanic on a skateboard. Jack is back. Get ready to grind, and we don't mean coffee. Starring Rick James as Dwayne Johnson, as The Rock, as the Iceberg.
Oh, that sounds expensive.
And returning, Brad Abrams, skateboard attorney.
About that?
Special appearance by Leonardo DiCaprio.
I mean, you do know you missed the meeting before this recording, right?
Jive talking robots.
No. Cut.
And She-Ra, Princess of Power.
No!
She's ready to kick flip into your heart.
I don't even know how that works.
And your unemployed stepdad.
All right, no, cut.
I got to stop you right there. First of all,
why?
If he's unemployed in the trailer, but we employ him for the film, like social services isn't going to like that. So he's going to be the employed stepdad, and we've wasted all this money in the trailer.
They're going to cut his benefits?
They're going to cut it.
All right, well.
Yes, that's going to be a hassle.
Why do we have to move mountains for that layabout freeloader?
Well, moving on, and going back on my notes here, there's no way that we could afford The Rock or Rick James.
But we need an iceberg.
About Leo.
Uh-huh.
He aged out of the role.
I mean,
he aged out years ago.
I mean, wasn't he like a kid or a nephew or something, like a decaf DiCaprio?
That's too soon.
What about? I haven't said the other part of it.
I didn't write it down. I'm sorry.
All right. I mean, doesn't he have like a kid or a nephew or something, like a decaf DiCaprio or maybe an iced decaf DiCaprio?
Too soon, man. Too soon.
What? Really?
Now, the other thing I have in my notes here is that we contacted Rad, and he said that he wanted more money to return. So can we nix the role and just recast it into somebody that we can afford?
No way. Paul, we're going to get sued. I mean, Rad Abrams is a legit attorney. We're going to be in big trouble if we don't bring him back somehow.
All right, how about this? How about this for an idea? We axe the entire project.
What?
And then
axe the
whole thing, and we sell it to Sci-Fi and let Sci-Fi do it, and we just live off the residuals. We don't even have to actually do anything.
You mean like maybe they could produce like 2 made-for-TV sequels in the same day, like they did with Return of the Living Dead? Like what's the skateboard analog for Rave to the Grave?
Let's see here. We'd have to think this through. I'm sure we could do a 180 and turn this around at some point.
All right. Well, what do you propose?
I propose that we do another least ambitious episode. I'm just so tired. I don't want to go back and do Echo. I know we retreaded all this thing a second time.
Echo?
Harder than you really think. It's more involved because I got to dictate to Gal 9000. Gal has to dictate to Abacus. Abacus has to dictate to the computer. And Abacus now with the AU and the was it the bug mites or whatever she's got?
She's got grid mites.
Grid mites. That's what it is. It's just it takes longer than you perceive.
All right.
So
Okay.
I just want another day. I know this is the second day in a row or second time in a row that we've taken off. I just want to blow it off and just coast. Can we just coast?
Well, I mean, the title of this is the least ambitious episode, part 2.
Well, it is now. And ready, and 3, 2, 1.
You're listening to the Sleepless Knights podcast. I'm what's left of Mr. Lobo. And Paul is somewhere in this room over there. Paul, wake up. Wake up, Paul.
I'm so tired.
I'm so sore and tired. I fell down yesterday.
Yeah, that's because I pushed you.
That's what it was. So we're like in the studio, and like we've been in here for a week, solid. And I know that
this room has a small smell of funk in it.
It does have
for a week.
It does have an aroma. It does have a nose to it. We need some more of that lavender glade sprayed around in here. But my God, so Paul came in for Camp Lobo, and we decided we would finish the least ambitious episode. What, 6 months in the making?
I think it was 9.
9
It was
months
August,
in the
August,
making?
September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April. 9 months.
That's-
9 months ago.
I mean, that's I guess where the less ambition comes
Yeah.
in, is that it took us a long time to finish it, but then we had to like sprint at the end to get it done.
Yeah. Well, I think it's what is funny is that it was scripted. We were committed for 9 months.
And I guess we should
notes.
We should make it clear that this is a Cinema Insomnia episode, the least ambitious episode,
Correct.
not this thing you're listening to now, which is the least ambitious podcast.
Right. Which is the companion piece.
The companion piece to the episode. Yeah.
That like 9 months ago, we had texted. We talked in the last episode. We texted, lost the text and stuff. But there were still post-its that were made, and the post-its were still committed to file cards that had the scenes. So we still kind of had a general idea where to pick up. And I think we did a pretty good job picking up the pieces where we left off.
Yeah,
I mean, there's only what 1 or 2 continuity errors that we found afterwards. But
Yeah,
it's
we're like,
well,
okay.
whatever. But one of the things that keeps coming up, and I know I kind of said like butting heads, but I don't think we're like butting heads. We're just kind of spitballing. Where like what exactly is ambition? What is ambition to Mr. Lobo?
Right. I think that we all had somewhat differing ambition, different ideas of what the least ambitious episode ever meant.
Right.
I think in my mind, I think I was thinking of more of like just bringing it back to basics, trying to do material that's, mostly what I call chair pieces, me sitting in the chair, making simple observations about the movie, maybe having a few hand props.
Right.
I think that would be an idea of like a light episode,
Right.
Versus these episodes that we talked about at last episodes where we're going off campus and bringing in a lot of extra actors and building props, making a lot of original props.
Green screening, yes.
Exactly. CGI. Aaron's doing all his technical wizardry for a bit. Or I'm talking to myself, or whatever weird.
I guess technically we did that in this episode too. In a way, we've already did that.
So, I guess, and we kind of have like this sort of, I kind of felt like, you always say that like every episode is somebody's first episode. I think I guess in my mind initially, as far as least ambitious, I thought like maybe we would make something at that entry level where it was simple enough to where it's just straight ahead and a good kind of, not necessarily a restart, but a good tip of the iceberg kind of simple, direct hosting.
We're not talking Titanic anymore. That was the old intro. Can we move on from that? No tip of the iceberg.
That's right.
For me, ambition is now. There's also I have to calculate escalation. Every episode has a little bit of escalation at some point. We have to like turn that dial up a little bit more to 11. So to me, in my mind, this is a pseudo sequel to Clean House. And all that was in camera, all that was with whatever we had at hand. It was had the situation at hand. The stuff was just there. We just set up the camera and just rolled with it. So it was kind of like that, where it's like anything that's just in hand we use. And that to me, the ambitious part was the storytelling. We did the opposite approach of show not tell. We told but not showed. So anything that we deemed that would be an ambitious thing always happened off screen, always happened in dialogue in some point.
Yeah, in the case of Clean House, we have this idea that, one, there's this bigger mess that we're not seeing.
Right.
Two, there's things like me taking things out to the street and things like that. We don't show me doing that.
Right. And then like the plot line of this is kind of like there's almost this theme of time travel. Like for something to be not ambitious, but to include time travel in some sort. Not just once, not just twice.
You're talking about this episode now.
Yes. I mean, it's kind of funny. Is like the least ambitious episode has time travel in it.
And I think that's funny too, because I feel like that was one of the things that we were calling out as, okay, we've got all these episodes that have too many characters, and there's multiverses and time travel, and we end up in our supposed least ambitious episode having some of that in there.
Yeah.
But I think it is a lot like the Clean House episode in the way that the studio was a mess. We
Yeah.
had a bunch of stuff around,
Yep.
and we tried to use as much of what
The
was
rule,
on
the
hand.
rules were here was Aaron's thing was that he would be like, oh, that scene could be augmented with this prop. We could build this prop, or we could go
Order this off Amazon.
Off Amazon, or I could go and I could draw this up, or I can ask AI to draw this up for this scene or whatever. And it's like, well, it has to be stuff that's already on hand. We have to be able to use it. It has to take no time. We don't have a week to wait for this to come from Amazon. It has to be there.
Another
So-
gripe too, especially like with the original Camp Lobo, was like we would keep stopping for food.
Yes.
Stopping to go to Home Depot. Stopping.
Oh, we need this prop. Well, we have to go to Home Depot to get that prop.
Stopping to go to Walmart. Running errands. So that was another thing that we kind of had to curtail, is that we had to absolutely, once we had committed to shooting for a period of time, to just shoot whatever we had.
Whatever we had. And I think like even as far as graphics, like it depends on how this plays out. We're only just after shooting, so we haven't looked at it editing. That there might be one or two scenes that Aaron might have to augment with a little bit of wizardry to make it play out a little bit.
The minimum just to sell it.
But that was the rule I told him. It has to be bare minimum. Minimum. It has, even if it looks cheap, it has to be bare minimum.
Yeah.
You can't take 4 weeks doing this.
Enough to sell the idea.
You got an hour to do this.
Right.
I think that was another thing. It's like you got an hour to do this.
Yeah.
If we were looking for something, if we were looking for a prop, it's
Yeah.
like, all right, let's put a time limit on it. If you don't find this in 5 minutes, if we don't find that button in 5 minutes, that button's not going.
That was
in.
exactly that happened. What was that yesterday? Right?
Yes.
I was dressed as Retro Lobo. Because of course we have in our least ambitious episode we have a period piece where it's supposed to be taking place 20 years ago.
And the period piece is the most stripped down, clean thing, and it's the last damn thing we shot.
Kind of forced us to clean.
Less complicated.
Right. The simplest thing was the hardest because we had to clean everything, move everything off the set, bring in new furniture that was old furniture. And try to make it seem like we were stripping it down to the basics, but we had to build up to strip it down, because stripping it down meant I had to go get a haircut.
Right.
Stripping it down meant I had to go find totally different wardrobe and a different tie.
And stripping it down would tie into the live streams, where it's like, well, this studio has to be cleaned up for the live stream. We can't have all this junk in front of that camera. That was another factor.
And I thought it would be fun to just do the live stream as the Retro Lobo, which is the simple...
And promote it as Retro Lobo.
The old desk and the old black telephone and just Miss Mittens. I actually stuffed Miss Mittens back into her pot a little bit to make her a little smaller than she usually is. Like we're going back in time a little bit. And
then you were talking about the button.
Oh, the button, yeah.
Yes.
So one of the things is that I have a button that I wear on my suit. They're not bad movies, just misunderstood. And that is only an affect, a more recent affect. Like I would say 2009 forward, I started wearing that badge. So to do 2001 Lobo, if I was wearing a badge, it would have been one of Bob Wilkins' badges from Creature Features. And I had a few of those. And they say his slogan was, "Watch horror films, keep America strong," which is funny because as kids we took it so seriously, but it really was like if he was making fun of the president, and it would have if Bob were alive today, it would be make horror films great again.
Right.
That would be Bob's joke if he were around. He was making fun of popular culture because Reagan was the governor, and vote Reagan, keep America strong was Reagan's motto. So it was a spoofy thing that he did, but it ended up being his tagline for his show, and so that was I thought, okay, well if I was wearing Bob's tie,
right.
So I have one of Bob Wilkins' old ties from Creature Features that he wore on the air, and I had the what?
The brown chair.
Oh yeah, the brown chair, not the yellow chair. Again, the yellow chair is 2009 forward, so we wanted to go back to the wooden chair, and then I brought in the old side table, and like I said, we made Miss Mittens look a little smaller.
We put her on a diet.
We took her alcohol away because I don't think Miss Mittens was an alcoholic in the early episodes, and then all that. So yeah, so it was fun. But then Paul was like, okay, you can look for that button for 5 more minutes.
And then we just got to go.
And then we just got to go.
Just set a timer. When the timer went off, it was like, that's it. That's it.
That's it. And that was fine. And honestly,
I think that kept us on task. 'Cause
I look back at my old episodes, and I'm not wearing a button in a lot of the old episodes,
Right.
so it's not that
the
big a deal.
concession was the glasses, and the glasses worked into the whole bit anyway. The red glasses, the blood-o-vision glasses.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was like, well, if in lieu of a button, we'll put the red blood-o-vision glasses, and then that just became.
That's
a part
right.
of
I
that
tucked
bit.
my blood-o-vision glasses in my pocket where I would have put the button. Mm-hmm. And then,
Even though this episode won't have blood-o-vision,
No.
but it's something that would have happened in 2001.
But in 2001 is where I came up with blood-o-vision, and that was a new thing. So I thought it was fun to have Mr. Lobo introduce something in blood-o-vision, because that's something he would have done in 2001. Lobo would have maybe done anyway.
Now, before we bump out, I want to add in Wendy. Now, Wendy's point of view as far as
So this is a different person's ambition. So
Yeah.
we talked about my idea of ambitious, your
Mine,
version of ambitious,
Aaron.
Aaron's version of ambitious.
Now, Wendy's is important to me because that's an outsider. That's
Yeah.
somebody that hasn't been here. They haven't heard all of our BS.
And she was here last night.
She was here last
so
night.
She missed all of it. She wasn't here the whole week.
She might have been a part of the stream in August when we had the bed out, or heard us talk about having the bed out. So, like, her only impression of the least ambitious was that there was a bed involved.
Yeah.
And when I asked her last night, I'm like, so what's your interpretation? What do you expect to see when you hear least ambitious? And she said, Mr. Lobo being in a bed for the entire thing.
Yeah.
And we're like, yeah, okay.
And maybe a lot of people think that, because I think we did do.
We streamed it.
We live streamed.
We
it.
live streamed it because I have my bit that is live streamed and has interaction.
And really, the bed is only in the beginning and the end, and there's a lot of other stuff that happens in the middle. So we do definitely subvert the audience's. I think we're subverting the audience's expectations big time.
They're expecting the bed, and then the bed disappears.
Yeah, and I think that and maybe that's why we don't have that much support on this episode.
Because I think you're going to be in the bed the
I
entire
just think
time.
I'm going to be in the bed the whole time. Which honestly, I mean, I feel like I've done episodes where I'm just sitting in a chair the whole time.
Oh, you've streamed where you were in bed. You were too sick, and you just had the camera pointed at you.
That's right.
and
I
stuff.
did several couch bed episodes.
I feel like that night you might have actually just streamed from the bed. And when my time was to do the take, we paused the movie, we did my take, and then we went back and you just did the whole stream from the bed.
I think I might have. Yeah, I was really sick for a while.
Yeah.
So,
Constantly. All the time. It's like that shut down production twice.
Yeah, it's weird because I don't think of myself as a person who gets sick a lot. Like maybe I only get sick once or twice a year, but it always and maybe there's the thing is that I'm working myself too hard and I get sick.
And your immune is low.
But it does seem to happen like right at the crux of a lot of work being done. Anyway, but speaking of being sick, we're going to lay out for a few minutes, and we'll be back with more of our least ambitious podcast episode ever. Oh, God. Wake up, Paul. Come on.
Hurry, hurry, hurry. Join us live in the stripy tent of Twitch every Saturday night, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 Pacific. Tune in early for our lead-in pre-show. See the amazing Wolf Boy and other sideshow freaks from your favorite misunderstood movies. See the mysterious and clinically depressed Harbinger. He died! See the pantsless bearded clam.
You know, I do have a name.
Join your ringmaster of ceremonies, Mr. Lobo himself.
Why do you get to use your real name?
Clam up, Beardo, and get back on your stool. And a revolving door of special guests to help present an episode of cinema Insomnia in a way you've never seen before. It's strange. It's bizarre. It's obtuse. It'll change your life. It's Cinema Insomnia on Twitch. CinemaInsomnia.com/Twitch.
Hey, can somebody check on Aaron?
We're back with more of the least ambitious episode ever, part 2. No, Glaganar, I don't want that right now, Glaganar. No, put that Bonono back. That we're not eating right now. I can't eat. while we do eat sometimes while we're on the podcast.
I don't know why he does that because you can't even see the hand.
No.
That's the joke. Is
So-
it's the hand, right?
Yeah, so there's these if you can imagine, there's these kind of just monster hands coming in, handing. Well, he's like stage hand, right?
Yeah. Well, his origin was bringing in or taking out the packages, or when you were opening things, he was handing you stuff to open.
Yeah,
the packages.
Glagonar is
Unboxing,
he's a
reboxings.
monster, and he's only in the margins, and we only see a little bit of him. And I would hand him off. He'd either give me items to help me open the box, or I'd hand him the box, things like that. And when we did the reboxing for YouTube, was that all in Bestow, or was that on the Mr. Lobo?
It's on the
YouTube?
Mr. Lobo. We were talking about. Might as well just parallel move it.
So, that was something that we did on that, and it was just like an easy character, and it gave it a little.
Gloves were just there. We just used them.
We gave it a little more spice than just like, oh, here, Paul, take this, right?
Right.
And so that was something that we did back then, and since it is Paul and I, and we're kind of celebrating ourselves a little bit, celebrating our collaborations a little bit.
Yeah, because Glagonar, I keep dropping the second G.
I always say Glagonar, but Glagnar is fine. I feel like
maybe
put an apostrophe in there, I guess.
Maybe it's Glagnar only to their friends, Otherwise, it's Glagnar.
Yeah.
I ended up buying a second set of those hands for myself, so there was a few cameos from Glagnar on the Bestow live streams.
Your Bestow live streams on Twitch.
So there was
I think I remember
because I don't even know where the original hands are anymore. We really need a second set of hands.
They must be in here somewhere, though.
Because I'm afraid
something's going to happen to them.
Pulling them on and off.
Latex, right? And the latex gets old, right?
It's already getting sticky.
What was the thing that Tom Savini, the Mr. Lobo, does Monster Bash?
Use tire spray.
Silicone lubricant, which I believe we have some in here. I think we do have some in here because he said so. But to keep your masks, like if you got a lot of Halloween masks that are latex, or if you have a lot of weird props that are latex, that he would recommend that. But so we have these latex hands, and we've been kind of bringing things into the Least Ambitious episode from Paul. And our previous collaborations of Mr. Lobo and Paul,
and the history of Cinema Insomnia,
and the history of Cinema Insomnia in its entirety. Yeah, it's a definite there's a lot of looking back in this episode.
I was going to say it's a love letter, but you don't really write a love letter to yourself, do you?
Not really. That sounds kind of messed up.
It sounds kind of foul. Do I have to bleep that?
Yes.
Just censor just that whole sentence.
So it does seem like a little
celebration.
Self-serving.
I think it's like a celebration.
You don't really celebrate yourself. But I feel like maybe perhaps just kind of looking back and honoring what we did before. I think a lot of times people kind of just look. They've got tunnel vision. It's like, what's the next thing?
Right.
And we kind of did not only just. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of going forward in this too.
But I feel like there's a lot of this for the fans that if they
there's
know,
a lot of this
they know.
for the fans that they know. If they know, they know. We definitely reference. Probably the most referenced thing is the Clean House episode with Red House.
Right.
And then
it's a parallel.
And definitely paralleling. And definitely, I feel like if you're a Mr. Lobo Does fan, I think you'll see a lot of parallels to that. Those works that we did together, and
Mr.
again,
Lobo's YouTube.
Some of
There's
the
parallels to that,
the unboxing, reboxings, and all those things, and so it is interesting too because it's very hard for me to separate my persona from my real life and my various different projects. So ultimately, all the projects seem to infect each other, where I feel like stuff that was just originally exclusively just maybe to Mr. Lobo Does or to Creative Continuity or
the podcast,
kind of all bled back into Cinema Insomnia.
Can we talk about that podcast where we germinated an idea on the podcast and it was like later on that week we took an idea from the last episode you all listened to and we're like, hey, let's use that. And it ended up coming around and being used.
Yeah, that's what's really funny is that the purpose of part one was to talk about the episode of Cinema Insomnia, but we ended up really kind of workshopping ideas within that podcast that ended up being part of that episode. So it was really going the reverse. It was the tail was wagging the dog. The thing that was about the episode ended up feeding the episode.
The snake was eating its tail.
Whatever. So that what's interesting is that we were really kind of pre-gaming the episode with the podcast, certain. I think at some point we name drop 2017, and that year factors directly into the episode.
2017 came from Coffee Clutch originally. Because the Coffee Clutch we were talking about, and it was like, remember, 2017 was the most prolific. We were doing Mr. Lobo Does. We were doing Cinema Insomnia, 16th anniversary Cinema Insomnia. That we were doing the podcast.
Yeah.
There was so much that being done. Creative continuity was being done at that time.
Yeah, and I think Trauma Tour
was around there, and it's like, how do we get that energy? I'm almost 50, and you're past 50. And we're like 50-year-old men. Where do we get the energy of when we were in our 30s?
Yeah, we had all this energy.
I guess we would have been in our 40s.
I don't know,
10 years,
10 years ago.
Yeah.
But the idea that we were able to have like 3 different shows and Cinema Insomnia and the podcast and all of this stuff all going at the same time, and a brand new network because OSI was new,
right?
And so there was all these promos and things that were being created. So it was just I could see why I almost got divorced then too. Because that was the other time where not to get too much into inside baseball, but things were definitely on the rocks where I think Dixie felt like my work was the other woman.
Right.
Right. And I think that is kind of I think again a difficulty of when you are an artist. It's so much hurry up and wait. It's like, here's your window. Like this week was our window. Mm-hmm. Here's this thing, this box you got to hit it in. Mm-hmm. Nothing for 9 months, and then suddenly we got to go like hell, and there's no time for anything else. Mm-hmm. And that I feel like is kind of a thing about. Even when I worked in TV news, it was like you're sitting there with your head in your hands, waiting for something to happen, and then the story breaks, and then for 3 days there's not even time to have lunch or anything because everyone's got to go. And so, there's no like normal times. There's no like, normal dinner time or normal bedtime or, vacations and time off and weekends. You kind of have to, when you're committed to working in the world of entertainment, everybody else has their fun weekends and their things that they're doing, but really you're the person who's pulling the strings to make those things. Right. So you don't get those same, you don't get those same privileges as like a normal working person, because you have to be ready to go whenever it's time to go. And when we were working on the movie in LA, we were working 15-hour days. Mm-hmm. So,
that's what I was thinking. It's like, I work 12-hour days working on independent films, but our window is it averaged to be 4 hours? We only ever really did 4 hours per day on average?
Of solid work, yes. But I feel like there was a lot of like prep and
that's not counting the prepping. That's like the actual. We got the cameras up, we're running shooting, and stuff like that. There's still times, and we would mesh things. So it's like we would go out for lunch, and that would be the time. Like I'd have the note cards with me, and I'm like, okay, this doesn't have any notes on it whatsoever. We didn't come up with anything. What comes up here? Logical progression, since we shot this in sequence. Yeah. What logically goes here?
Yeah.
And one of the things that's kind of almost brand new to us. I don't think we've ever done anything like this, but we've activated the Twitch 4 separate times.
Oh yeah.
Once for my role.
Yeah.
2 more times where it's like, hey, 9A and B have nothing. Why don't we toss this over to the stream just watched us shoot something. What will the stream say?
Yeah.
And the two people stepped up and said, here's this.
Yeah.
That we may or may. It might be in there. It might not be in there.
Yeah.
That's the promise. And then one guy helped us write the ending. They tossed us an additional ending, and I don't think we wouldn't have done that in 2017.
No, I think there's an interesting. I guess we have a community of fans right now, and I think that involving them and engaging them, especially when we're again taking they're supporting the episode. They're putting their money into it. They're pre-ordering the pre-ordering the Blu-ray and becoming an associate producer or what have you, or even just watching on Twitch, they're subscribing to that.
If you're pause right there 1 second. If you were to drop the URL, if you wanted to be a backer, what would that URL sound like?
Yes, it could sound like cinemainsomnia.com/devilbat.
So if you want to be a backer.
If you want to be a backer for the least ambitious episode ever. But, it is different that when you crowdfund and, my source of income is not the network that I'm on. It's not my distributor. It's not my producer. The fans really are the only source of monies that are coming in is coming from the fans. So there's a certain amount of, I feel like, you have to have transparency. It's like your fans are your boss, right? You got to show them your work, show them that you're actually doing the work,
right?
And allowing them some input. And so we've have a lot of entry points, like Paul said, of places where we allowed the fans to submit ideas that we incorporated into the episode. Yeah,
submitted ideas. They got to see their username on. They'll see their username on screen when it comes to that one interactive part. Yeah. And
then the other thing is and even in the live stream we had the scroll on there, or the was it the crawl on there?
Yes.
Where we had people.
Where it was like, it's a good idea until it came to time to implement it, and then it's like, we're already tired. We're already kind of getting on each other's nerves, and it's like, oh, now I got to type names, and then it doesn't work right. Oh, the URL's not there. That's this stream, have the names up there has already become more ambitious than the entire damn episode. But now the good thing is, now that it's done, the template's there, so we never have to stop down. We would be able to just plop it back up, change the names, use it to the future.
And I think that people really appreciate. I was always really like down on sharing any. I mean, we've talked about this before, but down on sharing so much behind-the-scenes stuff. In one hand, it always felt a little self-serving, where it's like, this thing we're doing is so important that we have to, tell you how all the sausage was made. And then on the other hand, I felt like it's as the magician going, yep, that's right, I've got this gear up my sleeve. That
Making the banana magically appear on a live stream or disappear.
Exactly. On the banana.
Great Glaganar.
Yeah, thanks, Glaganar. But Glaganar was doing magic tricks last night, where he was making he had a piece of fruit he kept trying to give Mr. Lobo, and then when Mr. Lobo didn't want it, he'd make it disappear.
Half the time I would drop it. I'd accidentally drop it into your crotch. Just like, God, no. Because it's like, you put me on the spot. I got to do magic, and I don't even know how to do it. Like, it's not something I would know how to do.
But what Paul was saying during the break is that was, it's like, even though just like Glaganar just happens to be here and we're just adding him into the mix, it ends up almost sort of being promotion for the episode, because this is a character that is featured in the least ambitious episode, and I think so. Kind of and maybe for some fans, a return of a character that they might peripherally remember from some of the old stuff.
Right. And I think it's fun to explore that character too. And it's hard to explore that character because he's nonverbal.
Yeah, you're always trying to tell me something,
and I'm trying to tell you something, and I can't because the mic is like 5 inches from my face.
Yeah,
and it's like no, like black and white all over, and I'm holding the black pen and the white out. Like, black and white all over.
Yeah. You got the black pen and the white out, and one of our fans, actually more than a fan, this is one of our inner spiral helpers behind the scenes. Rhiannon, who is known as Black and White in the chat stream, that's her username is Black and White, and so she won the contest last night. We frequently give away. I do a live drawing on the Twitch.
If you were to drop the Twitch URL here, what would that sound like?
What would it sound like? I think it would sound exactly like twitch.tv/cinema-insomnia. Or if you like the short link, which isn't any shorter.
but it's branded.
But it's branded, cinemaInsomnia.com/Twitch. And don't accept any substitutes. Any other Twitch channels that sound like Insomniac, whatever, that's not exactly us. It's nice that we have things that are 2 degrees from us. It makes us either feel like we've got something that somebody else, that's worth repeating. It's an art movement, I guess.
Right. The drawing. Your drawing.
Yes. So we had the my drawing we're giving away, and so her name was Black and White, and then there was the black pen and then the
white
whiteout
that just happened to be on the table.
And Glagnar is handing those to me, and I'm not getting it that he's playing off of her name, and then
And I'm like, I'm tapping my hand, and then I point black, white, right on the title card. I'm pointing right at it, and then I go, and then you're like, oh,
black and white. And then I took a little bit of the white out and put it on the black side, and put a little bit of the black on the white side. But but all the weirdness is happening, and I think that's actually one of the great things about the live stream is that on the one hand we've got an episode that's loose and has some improvisation, but the live stream is like you can kind of
don't know what you're going to get into.
It doesn't matter, and if it all falls on its fine too. It doesn't matter.
I mean, a lot of it, I feel like it's workshopping future ideas too.
Yeah.
Because I started to say with Glaganar is that it's like before it's just the thing that's bringing something in and out.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of developed where it's a thing that's got maybe a mindset of a 2-year-old, which it won't stop. It won't listen. You say no, and then they'll bring it back, or like a lot of the things where I'm opening is no, let me do that.
Yeah.
Or the ultimate thing that almost killed me was feeding you the banana. Yeah. Which we're almost out of time, but let me set this up where I give you the banana. You refuse.
Yes.
However many times. Mm-hmm. I'm walking through without the Glagnar hands. I'm walking in the background eating that goddamn banana. So you can see me eating the banana in the background.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you decide you want the banana. I'm like, I have a banana peel right here. So get this out of how many times I try to give you this banana, now I'm giving you an empty banana. I'm just giving you skins. Which just started the don't laugh, you're on mic, don't laugh.
Yeah.
And then it built up to, well, you want the banana. So then I started with the mentality of, oh, let me do it. Let me do it. I got this, Dad. Let me do this.
Yeah.
And then I decided to feed you.
Yeah.
And then I do it a second time.
Yeah.
And I do it a third time when you're in mid-sentence. I just shove the banana in your mouth. And I about passed out laughing so hard. Because I'm trying to hold back a laugh. And I'm like, this is golden.
Yeah, we gotta clip hilarious. This.
It's one of those things. When he's in the wing laughing,
I think it is great because like in my interpretation of that character is it's someone who wants to help so bad but they don't know how.
Right.
And they I'm just gonna keep bringing you stuff. I'm just gonna keep doing stuff. But yeah, it's interesting how endearing it was with the Twitch stream. It's interesting to see in real time how that plays out with an audience. So we're going to play out for right now to a break, and we'll be back with more of our least ambitious podcast episode ever, part 2.
Why did we decide to do this a second time?
No idea.
Hey, Mr. Lobo. I'm trying to buy a Mummy and the Monkey t-shirt for Miss Mittens, and I'm having troubles getting on the OSI 74 shop.
Well, first thing, Paul, you're staring at a blank page. We don't have our Store Etsy or ePay shops anymore. We have a Square site now.
Well, that's good because my monitor's square. Actually, it's more like a rectangle. Will it work on rectangles?
Secondly, we don't have the Mummy and the Monkey shirts on our site, okay? They have their own stuff. The OSI 74 shop is where you're going to find all our official in-house Outer Space International merchandise. The OSI 74 astronaut t-shirts, stickers, patches, posters, autographed Cinema Insomnia DVDs, and all our CI stuff like Mr. Lobo's coloring book and the Monster Match card game. I mean, you can even get a glow-in-the-dark Mr. Lobo shirt.
Huh. And what about stuff from the other OSI 74 shows?
Well, the OSI 74 Square site is also a hub to jump off to other shows and on-demand items for many of the weird, retro, and fun programs on our OSI 74 Roku channel. But if you're looking to buy a gift, why don't you keep it in the family and get a glow-in-the-dark Miss Mittens t-shirt for the Mummy and the Monkey?
I hate to be the one to break it to you, but they don't really watch your show. But I'll take a 62 triple extra large shirt. Can I get the producer's discount on that?
Don't be like Paul. Visit our shop at osi74.square.site.
We have so many things to keep track of in this episode. it got so confusing. We got confused ourselves a couple of times with all of the things that we were juggling around. Which things go in where and in what order and
how do you say this? Which is the right way to say this? Mr. Lobo would say it this way. Well, Paul would say it this way, but then Paul's also sometimes unreliable on what's to be said. And
yeah. So there was a lot of jazz, as Paul kept calling it, in this.
I kept thinking of the whole like Looney Tunes thing where they're just pushing a snowball at the top of the hill, and all of a sudden it just grows and grows and grows.
One of the things that we had, I guess, in the episode where we kept bringing back. I mean, it was something we brought back in the first place.
Yeah, but it was in our notes.
Yeah, we wanted to have the bug out box from the beginning. We did, which was good because we knew that we were going to be doing some cleaning and that it was playing off a clean house. And I think one of the notes was about the hats. Was Men Without Hats was something that we had mentioned.
Actually changed. We still used the joke, but it wasn't as written.
Not as written, no. But in the clean house episodes, like maybe one day we'll find the hats.
Yeah.
And so we had a loose thing that maybe we'll find hats at some point.
We find the hats, but then we lost the men.
We lost the men. I don't think we did that joke at all in the actual episode,
because I always felt that was the part 2 of that joke.
Yeah, but I didn't remember that, and we didn't discuss it.
And like that's a real life thing.
Yeah,
I'm putting this aside in case I find that thing, and then you find that thing, and then you can never remember.
Yeah.
I mean that happened all week long.
Yeah.
I know where that was 7 moves ago. We moved it 7 times.
Last night it was funny. We were watching Creepers episode and the bug out box, which we also planned on having in.
I didn't even remember that was in there. Did you remember that was in there?
I did not until I saw it,
because I didn't remember. Then you pointed it out, and I quick put it up on the screen. Like,
we must have filmed it at the same time as the Clean House episode. So in it's really weird, and I'm thinking, I don't know, Creepers must have been after that.
Yeah.
But
I mean, on my tag table, I thought Clean House was Mr. Lobo Camp 1.
Yeah.
But if it's Creepers and Mr. Lobo, it must be Mr. Lobo Camp 2 because you had said during the stream, you're like, oh, well, Paul's no longer here, so we had to put the flies on strings. And that's when I had to leave because I had a family member die and I had to go home.
Yeah.
And I went home for a few days and then had to come back and get my equipment and finish up shooting. So it was actually Lobo. So I guess my dates are a little bit later.
Maybe.
Than
That's again, our timeline
is this is why we have time travel in our crap.
Time travel, because we don't even know what times things happen. But so Paul was puppeting flies in Creepers. They're in the movie Creepers. There's bugs all over the movie.
Yeah, that's why I'm pantsless. Though there's no, there's flies on. There's no flies on pants. There's no flies on pants.
That's right. You don't even wear pants, so why would you have a fly?
So why would I be the fly?
But anyhow, so we had raisins as flies on a filament wire, and then we puppeted them in and out. And then in some scenes they're just hanging dead straight from the ceiling. They don't move at all. We have to keep pushing them.
They're intertwined.
They're all tangled.
You see they're all tangled. It looks like they're kind of stuck in a cobweb.
And then sometimes I have to poke them with my fingers so that they move a little bit. So we had them hang on strings, and Paul was puppeting them for part of the episode, and so that was about. That was about. Like before I watched it, that was the only like influence of Paul that I thought there really was in that episode, was Paul puppeting the flies and maybe some things, some other producing here and there in the background.
I feel like there were some of the lines I seem to recall like when we were all sitting at the writer's table.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. A little bit of producing here and there and puppeting the flies.
But it didn't seem like anything that I was suggesting live is what I'm saying.
And then it came to the scene where the snack bar segment and the bug out box is there, and the peanut butter is there, and the raisins are there.
And they were like, wait.
So that was really interesting because it was like, wow, this is directly folding out of directly folding out of the Clean House episode, or vice versa. Or they were done at the same time.
Maybe that was done Camp Lobo 1, and then the box just happened to be there, and you guys just used it.
I don't know, and then they just used the peanut butter again and used the raisins again.
It could have been the situation of like this: you just opened up the box and the stuff was still in there, and you're like, "I'll just use it."
Yeah, maybe. So I don't know, but anyhow, it was really interesting because we had just recreated the bug out box. Because the original bug out box, we found it, and I think I have a different lid on it from some other box, and then we we ended up adding more. Because the end of the world bug out box, it has a bunch of supplies of Mr. Lobo in there, and then it says generic end of the world survival kit, and then it has certain days on it, and they're crossed out. Like these were all doomsdays that never happened. So there was X Day, which I think is 1997, and then there was the 1999. Everyone thought the world was going to end, and there was Y2K, and then they were joking Y2J,
right.
and then it says 2016, and it's circled
and
underlined. And we thought
another reference
to Mr. Lobo does, and we thought, okay, well that's what it said on the original box. But then we thought, well, if we find the box again later, things have been so apocalyptic for so long, like 2020 forward. How many like brink of apocalypses have we experienced between all the pandemics and everything else?
And on top of that, we were already bouncing ideas of alternate universes. So there's alternate universe dates on there as well.
Right. And in the podcast, we had so many like weird apocalyptic things happening, and a lot of them paralleling some of the things that were happening, either with diseases and politics and all sorts of other things that were happening in the world. We kind of worked into the podcast in fictional ways.
Right.
And so
we could talk about it off-brand in a way.
Yeah, right. So, in the podcast, it was always chronic diarrhea instead of COVID.
Right.
So, and then we never talked about Trump. It was always
Abes and Apes.
Abes and Apes.
And that spurred off because was it like Disney would always change things, like was it 25%? So
with the 25% rule, we kept changing. Yeah,
it got ramped.
It was Apes. It was Planet of the Apes first. Planet of the Apes first. It was President Zaius or something like that.
Yeah.
So I might have been President Zaius or something like that, and then we were doing it in a parallel
because everything has to escalate.
Sphere. And then we had an episode where everything because of like Disney's weird stuff, if they change it by so much, they don't have to pay the writers or whatever.
Right.
And so everything gets changed like by 25%. And so we were doing that. So what was 25% change of ape? And then we had Abe, and so we had Abe Lincoln's controlling the universe, which is somewhat precedential anyway.
Yeah. And then somehow it ended up both.
Yeah.
they just fought it.
Then the Apes versus the Apes. Anyway, the
point
world is that
we went down that rabbit hole.
Is that we fell down a rabbit hole. But we want to give you the mindset of how Paul and I work together, and we have all this kind of mental diarrhea that's happening, chronic mental diarrhea happening in our brains. ICBMs. And those are chilly, cold, they hurt coming out. So then you've got the bug out box, and we thought, well, we could just turn the box and there could be more dates on it, different doomsdays, the apes taking over, or it was the Ape Revolt, I think was one of those.
I think something's on there. Biff's alternate timeline.
And then it was The Day After, which was the name of a movie. And then there was Doomsday, which is also the name of a movie.
But what would be funnier if we were like a Doomsday X2, and
then it was Doomsday 2.0.
But it was like 2.0 probably would be more funny as 2.0 wouldn't be a real term.
Yeah.
It would be more of a funnier term than X2.
Yeah.
Or an X3 or whatever.
And then what was it? 19XX was from a video game, right?
19XX was from
Mega Man.
Mega Man. Yeah. And 20XX, Aaron told us, was
also
the
Mega
sequels.
Man. Yeah. So we put a bunch more potential doomsdays that were crossed out on the
more
other side of the
doomsdays than
box.
we had on box.
and then we kept turning the box, like every side of the box.
I'm not going to do this.
Had more graffiti on it. And so that was how we started it out. So we amped up the original joke. So then we had the Doomsday box. Today, this is however many years later, Mr. Lobo takes out his bug out box. The peanut butter's still in there from before.
Everything else is decayed.
Everything else is turned to dust. So that was part of the joke in the episode, is that this item from 2016 resurfaces in this episode. But then we end up going back in the past in the episode. So we have to make another bug out box that looks like the first bug out box,
but with less
dates on it.
And it's like, had we have planned this, we would have done it the opposite way. We probably would have had one with less dates. Or
yeah.
I think it just was happenstance that it was just, the box was just here. It's what would we say? It's a
happy accident,
or happy accident, or it's production. We're upping the production.
Honestly though, we wanted the generic bug out box. I looked for it, so it wasn't a thing that was just here.
Right.
The original generic bug out box, when we, in the writing stage of the least ambitious episode ever, we stated that we wanted to bring it back. I went down in the attic and found it.
Down into the attic?
I mean, down into the basement.
Down into the basement, yes.
I went down in the basement, and it was moldy. That
Which
was
aged
the funny
it even
thing.
more.
So
Yes.
it was all moldy, and the tape was
Yes.
yellowing, and I'm like, this is actually pretty great that it's all old, because it legitimately, it isn't like, it's not pretend from 2016. It really is from 2016, and it hasn't been treated well. So I thought, well, okay, well, that's kind of cool. So we brought it in here. We brought the empty box in here. And then again, we added more dates on the other side of it. And then I just think it's hilarious that we ended up getting a fresher box and then trying to recreate the original box from before 2016.
Right. But it kept bouncing back and forth. I'm not going to do that. I don't want to do that.
Right.
Yeah. And then it got to a point where it's like, we said on the podcast, this is coming true. It bugs us enough that you have to do it. It's like, if it's bugging me this much, we have to do it. We have to take the time to do it.
Yeah. And that was kind of a thing, like, are we going to regret not doing it?
Right.
And you only have one, the thing is, on the one hand, it's like, it's least ambitious, it doesn't matter.
Right.
But then on the other hand, it's like, well, why are we doing it if we aren't doing it to our best ability? You know what I mean? And I think that there's two wolves inside of an artist, right? There's perfection and there's excellence. I think you can have excellence.
I don't like how you're gesturing with your hand. Can we turn this vertical? It kind of looks like the doctor's a visit here.
If you can have excellence, even though we don't have perfection.
Better.
And I think that you can. I think in this particular case, even though the writing was, even though it was the least ambitious episode, I think it was just like we imposed some technical and time limitations to what we were doing.
Right.
But we put in as much effort as we could to satisfy ourselves as creatives.
And I think also something we said that night is that this is the only time we have that chance to make that joke.
Yeah.
Let's make that joke.
Yeah.
We don't know if we'll ever be able to get a chance to do this joke again. So let's do it while we can do it.
Let's do it while we can do it. And it didn't take that much time.
Not really.
And so and it is kind of nice that there are a lot of hand touches in this. There are a lot of and that is bringing it back to basics. Me just taking out the markers and drawing something. We have several drawings in the episode. We have the Elvita drawing, which is just a drawing that I had already drawn of a character that I wanted to work into Cinema Insomnia, but we couldn't afford to work that character into it.
Right.
So it was interesting because it's like the drawing then becomes the character. It's like, okay, well, we have this drawing. We have a very easy way of explaining who she is, what she looks like, and we had someone to provide a voice,
what she sounds like,
and I'm able to interact with her, and we're able to play out a complete scene with a character we can't really afford to do,
and then escalate that.
Yes, and then escalate that
a scene later.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of amazing in that regard. But then so there's that that's art that I had already done that no one had seen other than people who saw me draw her in the live stream.
Right.
Having this character, Elvita, I guess we can just say that character, can't we? Elvita, Cheese Hostess of the Dark, who's a parody of Elvira. I thought, this is a funny joke. Everyone who sees that idea thinks it's a great idea. It's like, but again, it's like it just sits on the back burner because we can't quite do it. So so we were able to do, what was I going to say?
I was going to say, I think that idea germinated way back in before August when we were I think that was part of the text where I was like, what if we because we have to have a setup where we want to get somebody, but they can't be there.
Yeah.
And I think the original pitch was,
Elvira.
what if Elvira shows up and she cancels right beforehand and stuff?
Yeah.
And then you're like, well, we already have this artwork. And then, it begot from that. So that's how I think that got germinated.
Yeah. Normally on an episode, we have the Real 7 girl. And what would be the ultimate Real 7 girl? What if Elvira could
What would be our biggest get? And what would be the biggest letdown for an least ambitious episode?
Right. So,
what would fit at least ambitious?
And then I think
episode?
Initially Paul's idea is that Elvira says, hey, I can't make it this week. And so we have this kind of messed up situation where
we almost, the white whale, we almost get her for the real 7 girl, and it doesn't happen. But the phone call is the real 7 girl. And I think that was the initial idea.
Yes.
And then I thought, well, instead of Elvira, why don't it could be an in-universe character, since we have so many fun characters that are our own creation. It could be more, we got Mittens Kong and all of these, Yellow Fever and Glaganar, and we can kind of use this to sort of build out our universe a little more and introduce this character that I honestly would love to do, but it would mean casting an actress, making the dress, making a set, all of that.
Making sure that not only they're here, they have to be here when Paul's available.
Yeah,
I have to be here, and you have to be here, and maybe Aaron.
So Amber Lily, who is I guess we could say adult performer, Amber Lily, who's been on the show several times, she did a bump for us for both 2 holiday episodes, which I think is funny, where you have like this, for the holidays, you've got your cam girl doing but she's wonderful. I think that she's super talented. I think that she's a fan. She's one of our Insomniacs, and it's like she's a fan of my work, and I saw something in her. I'm like, she's funny. Like, I don't think her fans appreciate the talent that she has. It would be cool to return that appreciation and open this door and say, hey, you're a talented person. You got a great voice. Do you want to do a fun character? We had her on a couple of times just being herself doing bumpers, and then we were doing this Elvira thing. I was thinking, I bet you she would be a great Elvira voice, and she was.
Yeah, and that was there from the get-go, I believe. I think that was in the text.
Yeah. And so we called.
I'm glad we were able to keep that.
Yeah. And so again, it was so I guess the idea is that we have this drawing. I didn't quite get to what I wanted to say, but we have this drawing that we already made, and then there were other things like the universal the theory that Mr. Lobo has did a drawing of. That was another just stray idea that I had that we incorporated. And then there's the generic bug out box where I'm drawing something that I had drawn before, but a fresher, younger version of it, and a more updated version of it. Yeah. Things like that.
Yep.
Pen and paper.
All
right. Well, we're gonna scribble a few things down here, and we'll be back with more of the least ambitious podcast ever. Did you get your trading cards?
Oh, yeah. I picked them up.
Oh, wow. Look at these.
I think I got like the last 2 that were in the box.
Were these from the comic store or from Target? Or
Sure.
All right. Wow. Okay. There's 8. Looks like there's 8 or so. 8 cards and gum shards, it says.
Yeah.
All right. So open this up.
Do you think these are going to be worth a lot?
I don't know. Oh, I hope so. Should we have left them in the package?
I guess. I mean, isn't it really weird that they have the Sleepless Knights podcast trading cards, Patreon trading cards?
That we don't know about?
I mean, did licensing get a hold of you, or did they just do this?
No, I think they just did it, but I'm glad we can finally see them for ourselves.
Here, let me open up mine here.
I've got, let's see, there's 8 of them here.
Do you want to try the gum?
Oh, yeah.
I dare you. I dare you to try that gum.
Ooh,
this gum is, look at how hard this is.
It's like pale and...
Like that's just in my hands.
Yeah, I got a piece too.
All right, here. All right, I'm going to try it too.
It doesn't even chew. It like
mine tastes like a foot.
Oh, no, Paul, that's the Papa Nana corn chips.
Oh, should I try this pinkish one? Is this the gum? The pink one?
The pink one's the
pink
gum.
Flavored?
Yeah. No. So look, I got the current Uber fan.
This also tastes like a foot.
So I got the current Uber fan here, and I've got... Yeah, some of these, there are different distinctions here. So some of these are current Uber fans. So number 12, do you have that one? You have Michael Housel?
Yeah, actually, I have a Michael Housel, but...
you have a Michael Housel.
Do you have a Ben Dale? Do you need a Ben Dale?
Ben Dale. Yeah, I do.
Here, I have an extra Ben Dale. Here, have my Ben Dale here.
Oh, I guess so we're just trading Ben Dales?
Sure.
I do have Ben Dale. I don't have Anita.
I mean, do you have the Ben Dale in the red shirt or the Ben Dale in the pink shirt?
Oh, I have the
because there are 2 Ben Dales.
Yeah, I see there are 2 Ben Dales in here. All right. Well, I guess.
Well, here's the pink shirt.
All right. So we'll trade off. Okay, there we go. So now we have that.
Okay.
And then there's okay. And Anita, do you have Anita Rivnik?
I need a Anita.
You need Anita?
I need an Anita.
Okay. Do you? I could trade you. If you've got a John McCallum, I'll give you Anita Rivnik.
Hold on. Let me try. Let me try for that one. Here we go. Here we go. Who'd you need? John McCallum?
I
need an Anita.
You need Anita. Yeah, I'll give you a John McCallum.
Stay on script.
Okay.
Here we go. Here's
All right,
that.
there we go. All right. So these look pretty cool. So I think I've got, the major Uber fans here. And I guess we could see. There's super fans too, but I don't think I have any here. They're on the.
There's a super fans checklist on the back.
I
Did
see
you
that.
See that.
I see the checklist. Okay, yeah. Oh, okay. So we're gonna need that guy. That's number 43. And we're gonna need this other person.
Yeah. Look, like that person's on twice when they played on two different teams in the same year.
Oh,
and they got traded.
That's right. Yeah. Wow, very cool. Well,
is that a Garbage Pail Kid?
Well, they've got.
Is that a sponsor or is that a Garbage Pail Kid? That seems like a Garbage Pail Kid.
They've got
name.
something dripping from their nose. It could be one of our sponsors.
Okay.
If you want to join the team or upgrade or join us for our next month's recording, patreon.com/Sleepless Knights podcast/membership. Gifting memberships are available if you'd like to gift your friend or a loved one, have their name mentioned on the show.
Speaking of gifting, here, I'll gift you this pack. You can have this one.
Oh, wow. All right, I'll open this next. We'll see all you members in segment 5. Now let's get on with the show.
Oh, God.
Don't stop putting that in your mouth.
You think it would be better if I chewed the card?
They smell like bubble gum. They're probably good. All right. What was the thing I said last time? It was like, I'm me, you're, he's whoever, and who cares, right? It was something like that.
Was I awake?
I don't know. It doesn't matter. Anyway.
I think Glagnar hit the button. Glagnar.
Least
I keep forgetting that
ambitious
second G. I gotta
episode
get there.
ever. The second G.
I keep forgetting that.
Glagnar.
I think I feel like I over-emphasized the second G.
You just say Glagnar?
I say Glagnar.
Yeah, I say Glagnar.
Glagnar, but I hit it too hard now. Glagnar. Moving on.
So we had an interesting prop. Speaking of props in the episode, so I had a dream. This is a real thing that happened. So I had this weird dream. I woke up with this idea of art or creativity versus entertainment, and that entertainment is sort of like the frame or the format in which you can kind of glimpse the limitlessness of creativity, because creativity is just unending, and so I symbolize creativity by the double helix or the sort of sideways 8 loop, and then I drew a box over it, and then the X marks the spot. Was the box was represented entertainment or the frame, and then it can't encompass all of creativity, but just that point where the double helix crosses over on itself, the focal point, and that allows you to translate to people to glimpse the creativity and the limitless of creativity in a way that can be understood. And I don't even know if I explained it that well in the episode, but when we
were all different degrees of tired in the episode.
But what was interesting about it is that I had this kind of stray idea, kind of like the Elvita thing, where it was sort of a stray idea that I was going to develop further, and then suddenly we're in this moment where we're creating a scene on the spot about characters from Mr. Lobo's universe, side universes, the future or something. They appear in a portal and they want to take Mr. Lobo on an adventure. And this is something that was there from the very beginning, where Mr. Lobo is eschewing and not wanting to, okay, no, I don't want to go on any adventures.
Right.
No, so this is supposed to be...
That's too ambitious.
This is too ambitious. We got to keep it simple. And he keeps having these, people kind of trying to recruit him into adventures that he's turning down. So that was a part of it from the beginning.
Right.
And so, but what's the adventure that we're recruiting him for that he's turning down? Yes. So we have to still come up with something.
Which spun off from last week's podcast.
Yeah.
It's 2017.
Yeah, exactly. So we thought, well, what if we send them back to 2017? What if they need to go back to 2017 to give, to talk to or to connect with 2017 Lobo, and they want Mr. Lobo to come with them. Mr. Lobo just doesn't want to go. And I thought, well, he gives them the universal theory. So he draws the double helix with the box around the middle of it and explains it as the universal theory and folds it up, and he gives it to Litton's Kong and Mitten's Alpha, and they go through the portal to deliver that to 2017 Mr. Lobo.
Listen to you describe it is so much more spectacular than when you're actually on the frame. It's like...
So that's what happened. So this is something that happens in the least ambitious episode ever. Glowing green portal opens, and we give this thing to them, and they take it back. Okay, you think, okay, that's the end of it. No, of course that's not the end of it. But of course, later in the episode, when we open the bug out box, the thing is in there. The folded up theory is in there. But Paul wanted it to be aged. Now, the funny thing about this is that now I know how to age things properly. You'd have to use tea, and you'd stain it, and there are all these sort of techniques that you would do. But those would all take time.
Right.
And even though it would take less time than aging it for real, it was still more time than we were willing to spend.
Yeah, because it was like I'm just a random number, it's like 8A, but this was like maybe 9A is when the paper would have. So, and we were shooting them all
in
consecutively.
Sequence, so we didn't really have time to age the paper. So
following our own rules.
So
that's ambitious. So we don't have time.
So I crumpled the paper up and then uncrumpled it, and then we had some cooking oil in here, and we had I'm trying to think of what else was in here.
You ripped it.
Oh, crayons. We tore it in several spots.
I thought that Pantsless producer Paul would tag it in some way.
Oh yeah, a little bit of graffiti on it. I think there's a tic-tac-toe on it, and then Paul writes something funny on it. So I smear it up with my hands, and I put a lot of brown crayon on the edges, and I put some of the rub my cooking oil on my hands and get a little oil into the paper.
We just ruined this prop,
So this brand new clean...
Because it's like, we're never going to need this again. Let's just ruin it.
Brand new clean... I tore it and taped it together.
Yes, yep.
So it
was misaligned.
So misaligned. So we did all this stuff to it, put it in the bug out box, and then the funny idea is that we're using it as like a tablecloth in this thing that was so important.
Well, you're mad because you're perceiving that 2017 because it's tagged and torn and nothing's changed for you. That they just abused this and never took the message. They didn't use the message properly.
They didn't take They didn't take it seriously.
And you're mad at the dang kid in the yard.
Yeah.
And then you just turn around because you abuse it yourself.
Yeah. I'm making fun of how careless I am, but it's still me that I'm talking about. The older version of the same guy. So even though I'm mad at my younger self, I didn't learn anything. I'm not doing anything with it either. So that was the sort of the joke, and so I'm using it as a tablecloth and everything else in the later part of the episode, and it's all smeary and dirty. And we thought, okay, well that's it, right? That's the payoff.
That was it. We can get rid of. We can gift this. We can put this up for giveaways.
We can give it as a giveaway on the live stream, and then all of a sudden, like we write this new segment, which is an old segment. Right. It's a flashback to 2001. We decided it would be interesting if the mail sack was out of continuity with the rest of the episode, which is often in the show where there's the storyline of the episode, and the mail sack usually sometimes the real Seven Girl too. Sometimes the snack segment too, but the sort of departmental segments of the show are sometimes out of continuity with the story because sometimes it's too hard to work the story. Why would they stop here and make a snack or answer the mail or whatever else? So a lot of times the mail sack's out of continuity, and then
I always assume for television that that's a pre-recorded segment that they just have on stock and they would just throw in.
Right, the mail sack or anything else. So we have this concept that because of all this stuff is going on, that they would just have like a canned, in case of emergency, pre-recorded.
Is it break glass in case of emergency or in case of emergency break glass?
I mean, in case of emergency.
I think we almost came to fisticuffs over that.
Yeah. For me, I like the way I see it is the way it's written on like a fire hose. In case of emergency, break glass. But in Paul's defense, you need to break glass
if it's an emergency.
So anyhow, regardless of however you want to phrase it, it's the same.
I'll still fight you over this. Let's go. Come on.
That's
Ready?
right.
After
I think I
cut.
did it both ways when we recorded
Probably.
it. And then
I tried to look past it after a while.
So we got over that dark patch in our relationship. so somehow it is a pre-recorded Mr. Lobo from a previous era.
Right.
And we wanted it to seem disconnected enough to where it wouldn't spoil everything else that we were doing. So we're like, well, let's put it way back.
Right.
And since we're kind of honoring all these different eras of ourselves, and I, the other thing is that for the most of the episode, I'd been wearing the sleeping hat.
Right.
And I thought, well, I'm going to get a haircut.
Right.
I'm going to dye my sideburns. It'll be really dramatic. It'll be from a much earlier era Lobo.
And the thing was, I think because of the haircut, this scene got pushed to the very end because it's like we have to do all this first to put it at the end. And I think because we put it on the end, there was all the stuff that we had already set up where it's like, there's some payoff on this.
We ended up thinking about it, and Paul and I talked about this concept here first. Like there is some merit to giving some time for an idea to cook. Like if we have an idea, to not immediately film it. To maybe it's weird because there is merits to both ways. It's like, okay, let's not this thing die on the vine.
Right. If we wait, we'll forget.
If we wait, we'll forget. So that's the one side. But on the other side is that if there's a little bit of a delay between when you decide, okay, we're going to film this tomorrow, you've got that whole, your brain never stops thinking about it. So by the time, 24 hours later, when it finally comes time to do that thing that you said you were going to do, you have all these ideas in your back pocket that weren't there when you initially set the thing up. And so in this particular case, it's like we've been cooking on this idea of doing a throwback pre-recorded mail sack for the episode. And then we thought, oh, well, obviously the theory. The bug out box.
Gotcha.
The mail would be, the bug out box would be in the segment, and it would be the younger version of the bug out box, and then the theory.
Younger version of Lobo.
The younger version of me, the cleaner version of the bug out box with fewer dates on it.
The cleaner set.
And there would be the original theory that I sent back in time that we'd already destroyed.
Right.
So we.
Because I think I even approached you and I was like very timid about it. I was like, how hard would it be to recreate this where it's not damaged, where it's actually pristine?
So we had to make a whole nother version of the original one and make it exactly like the original or close enough to where someone would see it and not think it's a different one. It has to be the one that I gave myself or was supposed to give myself. Mm-hmm. And so we ended up taking the greasy, stained, oily one that's taped together and placing it behind a clean sheet of paper and tracing it out in pencil and then laying it out and looking at it and redrawing it as closely as possible and then trying to fold it up the same way.
Yes. We had to watch the video like 2-3 times.
Yeah, watch the video to make sure it's folded the same way. And so the folds are going the right direction. And then there it is. So we ended up having the really three distinct versions of the universal theory in the episode.
And then the implication is that that Miss Mittens Kong and Alpha went back too far. They didn't go to 2017.
Yeah, and you get a little bit of that conversation where it's like, what? This isn't 2017.
Yeah.
So you see where it all fell apart, where their plan all fell apart, and but that's such a weird thing to have.
It's implied that their mission's a success, but then they still botched it. They botched the mission.
It worked out.
That's why it didn't work out for XYZ, but did work out for everybody else. But then they also went back too far.
They also went back too far. So there's a lot of funny aspects to it, to where they think they did fine, but they didn't do fine. And why it didn't go perfectly, because they didn't quite do it right. And
can I say that, like, the other happenstance thing is that when we de-aged the box, that the stuff was still in the box from another take, and it's just like, oh well, look, this is the peanut butter's already been a running gag. Use the peanut butter. Oh, there's another item in this box. That's been a running gag so far. What if that was here and then goes and then appears somewhere else?
And then it's always like the Back to the Future thing where it's you somehow witness the origin of something that's always been there. So the
And I love that
mailbag-
it's out of context.
Yeah.
Like you're going to have to do some homework in the least ambitious ever.
So I've got the bug out box, and then I'm like, don't we have a mailbag or something? And then the stagehand, and we had you wearing a T-shirt from 2001.
Yeah. Playing Todd, I believe.
Playing Todd Thomas from KXTV throws the bag in, and then it's the mailbag, of course, that you recognize from future episodes, which we didn't have in the first season. So this is almost the origin story of the mail sack, which we have in future episodes. So we're kind of making fun of those prequel-esque kind of things within this one mail sack.
There's a
segment.
joke. There's a joke recall with the mail sack too. That's recalls in another segment that happens early. That's outstanding for an at least ambitious episode where there's so much logic to it. It's not you in the bed for 2 hours.
No, it wasn't me for the bed. And of course, the payoff for the least ambitious episode ever, where Mr. Lobo finally kind of gives in and goes on a side adventure
under duress.
Not
your choice.
And we don't see it still because that's the thing that would break it. That would break our own rules.
That was the thing that bothered Aaron.
Yeah, I think Aaron was thinking that would be the moment to break it to actually just make it the most ambitious episode ever, which would definitely defy the audience's expectations. I feel like we're still defying the audience's expectations, but I think Aaron has the hand grenade down the pants subtlety. He really wants to blow it out into a whole nother.
I don't disagree with him, but I think you and I were like, we set these rules, we're going to keep these rules.
And I feel like that we can do that.
Some of the stuff we can do. Some we can do.
And I feel like we can save it for another time too.
Yeah.
Like I feel like, again, there's we always end an episode with a bunch more ideas for something else. So
that can go elsewhere.
Anyhow,
he can recall. There could be a pseudo sequel to this and stuff. But the one thing that, and I don't want to spoil it, but it's a sort of an Aaron idea, and it still fits with our thing, so we could still grease it up, botch it up a little bit, that both parties could be happy.
Maybe, yeah. It's interesting, because we're all kind of have to come together on it. I think that what's great about what was interesting is that this is a scene where Mr. Lobo comes back from an adventure that we haven't seen, and he tells you about it, and it was so much stuff to remember.
It's so epic.
And so it ended up taking a long time.
Yes.
I think it took us 3 hours.
Yes, and then we involved the stream too.
Yeah. We wanted to get to the Fanger, who is usually doing his fanfic in the chat all the time, talking about wolf boys from another dimension and all of this stuff. And Mr. Lobo and Mr. Manunu are on an adventure, and they're doing. And this is like a running thing with Fanger, is that his creativity is so overstimulated by our world and our characters and what we're showing, that he's just basically just throwing in all these ideas of how he would tell the story.
Yep.
And so
good idea. Dial it back.
and I'm like, okay, Fanger, here's your moment. Here's your window. Okay, this is here's the double helix of every. Here's the double helix of the trillion ideas that you have. Here's the box. You need to get it inside that box. And so he did do that. He threw a bunch of ideas at us, and some of those ideas were very good. And we took notes of this of that, and that did help finesse Mr. Lobo's description of the adventure that he goes on.
And some of the other stuff we put aside in a document too.
Yeah,
because we're like, maybe there's room for this elsewhere.
But he was really thrilled that he got to participate.
Yeah.
Like, he was very grateful and very excited that his ideas would be considered for this part. But it was brutal though.
Yeah, and we knew that this ending was going to be brutal. We knew this since August. We knew, because they were like, this has to be the payoff.
Yeah,
this has to be the thing that we build up to, and
Yeah.
it still has to fall flat on its ass. I've been saying the whole thing about it throughout the whole week. Is like you got to throw out that line, now you got to reel it back. Now you got to throw out that line, and that's basically this is that final thing, and it has to be
like
that
there was
big
another
escalation.
analogy versus throwing it out and pulling it.
Yeah,
back,
it was winding it up and letting it go.
Winding it up and letting it go. That's what you were saying.
We would wind it up, wind it up, wind it up, wind it up. Okay, now we let it go, and
Now
it just
we
goes.
let it go. And even the AI somehow knows that is the MO of our humor is the things falling on their ass or the entropy taking over, things going wrong.
Right, like what we just talked about. The wind up would be, making the artwork to we're winding up. So here's the universal artwork that's going to go back in time.
Yeah.
And it's like you think everything is good, and then it's like, okay, now we let it, and it's still wind up when you find it, and you're like, oh, the 2017 me was so irresponsible or whatever.
Yeah.
And then it's the let it go is that you're just as irresponsible as 2017 you.
Yeah.
You just treat it the same way.
Yeah, and that's an ongoing thing. I mean, even in like the day time ended, where Mr. Lobo's stuck in a time loop, and he blows up the world, and then everything starts all over again. Even after he learns he's in a time loop and that his own actions cause the end of the world, he still F's it up.
Right.
He still ends the world every time.
Right.
So there is kind of an interesting thing of even when you have good intentions and you know you're messing up, it doesn't mean you're going to be able to fix it or you're going to change who you are. So that is kind of
it's an inevitability. No matter
inevitability, yeah. And so you're just stressing yourself out over nothing most of the time. And I think we do that. I think real life we do that. So this was been an incredible week. There was a lot, and then of course we end up bringing the bed back in. Do we want to mention that? So the ends where it starts, where we do bring the bed back in for the ending, which was not easy to film either.
No.
But
easier
than we thought, honestly.
Yeah,
easier than we thought. But it does bring a nice. I think it gives it.
I think
full circle.
I think the wrinkle was that there's should I spoil this? Should I say that there's a post credit? There's something extra.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess we already said there was a post credit earlier.
Yeah.
There's a post credit, and it was just simpler to just run that as a long cut, and then instead of treating it as its own scene, just do a long cut, and then in editing,
and
I'll
then
fix
save
that.
part of it for the post credit. Yeah.
So I think that was the part, because you had to remember 11B, and then you had to remember all the jazz for the post credit, which we kept hashing out, but we were so damn tired by the time we got to this, where it's like, I can't remember what I said 3 seconds ago, let alone a week.
And 11B, I guess I should talk a little tiny bit of inside baseball before we wind it up. If you watch a Cinema Insomnia episode, it's a 12-segment clock. One of the segments is the intermission, and then the first 5 segments is the first half of the show, and then the last 6 segments are the ending of the show. So the movie's in 11 parts, and then there's a 12th part, which is a floating part, which is the intermission, which can be as long or collapsed as possible. And so we have an A and B going around each part. So 1A and 1B is the first 2 host segments, and then the ending of the show is 11A and 11B. And that's the typical episode. Again, I talked about this with Paul. It's like format. Format is not do or die. You don't always have to exactly hit format. Format's the safety net. If you don't have a million ideas, you always can fall back on that format, and it'll get you through. But you don't if you're so chained to it that you're not inventing anything or adding anything to the mix. I think sometimes the rules and the formats can be your enemy. But it is interesting to respect the balance between the rules you set down or the guidance that you set down to sort of keep it in that box. And the other part of is to remind yourself why you're in it in the first place is to have a place to invent and expand and change and move things around. And we did a lot of moving things around and changing things and inventing things. The idea is that the ambition was in the ideas and not in shooting ourselves in the foot and shooting ourselves in the face and shooting ourselves or just wanting to shoot ourselves, which is usually the MO for at least for Aaron and Paul. Mr. Lobo has the most amount of suicidal producers of any host.
I was yelling at a cloud at some point, and you're like, Paul, if you didn't have any problems in the world, what what would you be like today? And I said, I would die happy.
Yeah, it's a way to go dark on everything, right? It just makes everything sound dark. I mean, we all do this because we love this, and there was some sort of statement about how, like, if you're an artist, it's like making your art is the only thing that keeps you from walking into traffic, right? Is that I forgot? I'm paraphrasing that, but there's a reason why every time we try to do an easy episode, even the clean house episode, which was supposed to be like, oh, it's generic, we don't have to try that hard. The thing is that if there's no ambition, there's no motivation. And so if you make things too easy for yourself, you don't get it done at all. It almost has the opposite effect. So there's somewhere between overwhelming yourself with too many ideas and underwhelming yourself to where it's not even worth doing. And so striking that balance is always really hard. And hopefully we're not striking each other, because we did get mad a couple of times.
Tiredness played a big factor.
Yeah.
I mean, having to stream till 3 a.m. and then get up and still, the schedule was still flexible enough that it didn't have to get done right away. There was still other work to be done. But I think once the cameras got set up, once you have to do all that extra work to get everything ready, and then it's just, all right, you kind of want to keep going, but then you're still inspired to do ideas. But then it's like when somebody throws out an idea, it's like, shut up! Too much.
Too ambitious.
Too ambitious.
Too ambitious. How many times did we say that?
Yes.
That's too ambitious.
But there's also a lot of balance with your style versus my style.
Yeah.
So there's naturally some clashes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I try not to take anything personally. We're going to be angry for like 24 hours and then we're going to be over it. Yeah. Nothing's going to be taken to heart. But it's also like, at what point is Paul going over the edge, and what point is Lobo going over the edge? Where are we balancing each other out? And I think that's our compromise. That's how the episodes get made. That's how the sausage gets found. That's how we waggle our sausage in traffic. Is that
that's
analogy?
How we waggle our sausage in traffic?
Yeah, is that how that goes?
I don't know, but that's how the podcast goes over 16 minutes.
Pretty much. I mean, that's how it's Mr. Lobo who wants everything scripted, and the Pantsless producer who wants to do everything off the cuff, and like we're going like this because you want to write 11A because that's too ambitious, and I just want to get it done, and I just want to you just talk to the camera and I'll throw things out. And I think like I'm in the wrong, and you're in the right. It's just like egos sometimes play a part of that.
Sometimes I think for that episode, for that one, I might have wanted to use a teleprompter. I think it maybe would have gone a little smoother.
And every time
we hadn't used one up until that point. So from Paul's point of view, it would have been bringing in whole nother element,
stopping it all down.
He just
when the teleprompter comes in, it's always I have to run the teleprompter, and it's like if I'm running the teleprompter, I'm not listening, I'm not watching.
We needed
it takes my attention away. It was always always a sticking point in Camp Levo 1 and 2.
Yeah, and we did need we really do need more people to help us with this. That's another thing that came out of this week of working. It's like we're doing the work of 5 people. Each of us are doing the work of 5.
The almost 50-year-old and the over 50-year-old is doing the work of 5 to 7 people.
Too ambitious.
And mailing it out and doing live streams.
Anyway, let's
get the hell out of here. I'm tired.
This least ambitious podcast was
I want to fight you
ambitious.
in the alley later after this. Ding, ding.
All right. Bye-bye.
You have been listening to the Sleepless Knights podcast, or should we say, pODDcast.
pODDcast.
Emphasis on the odd. Our theme is by Mars Homeworld at Deadhouse Music. Our opening announcement is by Ophelia Necro. She does a radio show called Suicide Watch. Patreon supporters get to hear this podcast before anyone else, and a lot of other great stuff, right, Paul?
Sure.
Doesn't get it better than that, right? So come join the fun at
patreon.com/Sleepless Knights podcast.
Please stay up with us next week for another Sleepless Knights podcast. Or should we say, pODDcast.
pODDcast.
The best thing about being an insomniac is never having to say goodnight.
Good night.